we divide 125 genders by 3 bathrooms, how much climate change do we have? The Kate Daly Show starts now.
Scientists have proven that every square centimeter of skin, when you're out in the sun, produces 19 international units. And the other thing you have to understand is when the sun hits your face, behind your eyes, your pituitary gland, pineal, and hypothalamus glands, and when the sun strikes your eyes, they trigger and start producing calcitonin, melatonin, serotonin, all these hormones and enzymes, all of which, if you go to biology books, you want because it'll keep you healthy and young. So all these hormones and enzymes are produced only from the sun. But yet the sun causes cancer. Avoid the sun like the plague. Oh, no more than 10 minutes, the doctor says. How stupid could they be? Because the same doctor will tell you you need melanin and serotonin.
And how else are you supposed to get it other than naturally?
Well, they'll sell you a chemical.
Sure.
If we divide 125 genders by 3 bathrooms, how much climate change do we have? The Kate Daly Show starts now.
Right. Hey, welcome. I know it's been a week off, and I'm so grateful to be back, actually. There's so much to talk about. So, of course, the phone line is open, and the number is 435-680-2503. You can call in or text. A lot of people text. It's fine. And you can also comment on YouTube or Rumble or X or Facebook, wherever we're at. And the number again is, it's actually a local number to Utah, but you can call or text 435-680-2503. Man, do we have a lot to talk about. I'm going to go into some pretty interesting areas of thought today, and clear up some insights and things like that. But I did want to tell you that Eric Peters from Eric Peters Autos is going to be joining us into the hour, so almost to the next hour. So I just wanted to let you know, give you a heads up. But welcome to the show if you've never been here before, and of course I'm going to cover a lot of ground. So listen, let's start out. Let's start out with the one thing that has I've written about this. I've written about this on the page, on the Facebook page, Kate Daly Show, and that is the Pete Hegseth religious taking LDS off the list and of the classification of Christian. So it was for the military members, and they would designate Christian in front of the actual religion, and then they took us off of that. And I happen to be LDS, and so of course I had something to say about it. And it was interesting because I was listening, of course, to other talk show hosts, and of course Glenn. Glenn said he got a call at midnight from the president, and then of course he saved the day. So, okay, and of course, the president has that much power, and we're going to pretend that the president has this much power that Glenn can save the day with a phone call and, hey, revise the list and take the word Christian off of it. And I have a feeling that this became a subject, this became a something for later on. I'm just going to suppose that there's a reason to this, taking the Christian classification off. Everybody was the response. But it was interesting because when I put it up, I said, look, there aren't any other talk show hosts. There isn't going to be anybody in government, including my 2 senators in Utah, which one of them is regarded as a constitutionalist. But I beg to differ. So I don't see him doing very much in that arena. I see him voting sometimes towards the Constitution, or mostly, but never creating anything or really taking a stand and going out there and doing anything. But the articles in Utah were the 2 senators, which the other one is just such a putz, Curtis, but he's such a lefty loony, but whatever. He's a liar. He pretends to be a conservative. Everybody pretends to be a conservative in my state. But what happened was the article was geared around, they are concerned. They're concerned about the status that the government is giving. Well, my concern was the fact that no one was mentioning the fact that the government has no right to classify religion. The government has, I don't care if it's military members. People were going on there going, oh, it's military members. How dare you even say that? Because they have no, they don't. They don't have a right to classify which ones are Christian and which ones aren't. So they're not questioning the list. They're questioning how the list was made. Okay, as far as like, or what's on the list, but they're not questioning the actual list. And this goes to show you for just about everything in government. It's incredible that so many in government, so many talk show hosts, so many people out there with a microphone like this can't state the obvious. And that is, it's about the thing. It isn't about how the thing is done. It's about the thing. So, it drives me insane because we don't even recognize what we're doing. So the more we argue over how the list is made and what it says, it gives government the authority it's not supposed to have. So it's ridiculous. And we keep falling for it over and over and over and over again. And so people, what they do is they foster the argument into a different zone, into a different path, so that you're not arguing whether the thing should exist. You're arguing how it's done and that government does have a role and it's okay if government classifies it. And you are supposed to then straighten government out so that government will do it right. And we wonder why we're such a mess. You know what? 250-year birthday. Do you know what we're celebrating? 250 years of wussbaggeriness. We're the biggest wussbags in the entire universe that we don't even fight for our own liberty. Okay? And by the way, yes, I'm getting some comments on YouTube. Howdy, welcome back. And yes, I was gone for a week, and I take last week off in June. The first week of June, I take it off every single year. But anyway, so I am glad to be back. But let me just tell you, the government has no right to do any sort of classification. The fact that they're even making a list about religion is about the most asinine thing. It doesn't matter what the military members, what the religion they are. It doesn't matter. It's not supposed to matter to the government. Government, even though they technically employees of the government because they're working in the military, still doesn't mean that the government can classify what religion they are or even care or even put it on a list. So question the list. Don't question how the list is done. Question the list itself. So same thing goes with data centers. And this drives me crazy. So I got to get to my second thing because that drove me nuts that people were honestly saying things like, oh, it's the military, so the government can do whatever they want. This is a problem in our thinking. We should tell them that they are not allowed to do this. Okay, it is not within their role. And but no, we don't have that argument. So I also wanted to mention data centers. Now, this is an interesting one again because we've talked about this so much. This picture that they show for data centers, did you know that this is AI? Right here? This is AI. This is not a real picture. This is why I say that the data centers themselves, I do not think they are going up for the reasons that we're told, by the way. I think it's all fakery. And I think that they're doing these installations. Everything's on the cloud right now. But we need these in every city. Now, we've said this ad nauseum on the show, so I'm not going to keep going on this one in particular. But I do want to say that we are fighting the wrong battle. The battle is not over environmentalism. It is not over health and safety of these. It is, damn it, what is wrong with people? These buildings are supposed to house NSA spying documents and information, and no one is doing anything or saying anything about that. Everybody gets that, right? No one is going after the right argument, and people are all consumed. A lot of the lefties very, very consumed with environmentalism and how the kind of things that we're going to receive from them. And oh my gosh. And yes, you should be upset about utilities because it's used as a lie. It's used as a lie to increase your price because they're going to create false shortages. But look, it isn't about that. It is about the fact that they are storing spying that everybody should be upset about. And people don't even go with that argument to the table. Isn't that amazing? And again, did I also tell you that this is AI? This photo is AI? We have all AI images. We don't even have real images. Oh, we're the stupidest people on earth. We should celebrate 250 years of ignorance and complacency for letting the government get away with what they're getting away with. That's what we should be celebrating. Right? We're celebrating 250 years of liberty. What liberty? They're doing these huge building installations in every city across America, and people are fighting it for the wrong reason. They don't even care about their liberty. That's not enough to get them off the couch and into a meeting with the commissioners to talk about it and to object to it when they get a chance based on when they can have public comment. But no, what we're doing is gathering all the info for the environment and then going in and having a meltdown over that. I was looking at a post with these two women, right? And these two women were saying, this is all the research we've done, and it's all about environmentalism. It's all about how our families are affected and how we can't go to parks. And I was like wanting to reach into the article and shake these women, because I'm like, this is not the argument. The argument isn't whether you're safe or not. The argument is you should not exist. There should be no NSA spying. The government has no ability to do this. They have actually not ability. They created the ability, but they have no legality to do this. And we're allowing it. And we're not even fighting the right fight. I don't even know what to say. I don't even know what to say anymore. And so what happens is your talk show hosts and your people with a microphone are basically giving you all of this sort of disinformation route, like pretending that the president gets to decide if or when somebody is supposed to be a Christian. As a Mormon, as an LDS person, it is literally in the title of our church. The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Okay. And they want to pretend that we're not Christian, right? As if they have a say. As if they have a say. As if they have the authority to classify. And so what did they do? They took Christian off the list for everybody instead of just not having a list. See? So when the next president comes along, then it'll be different info, but whatever. It is just, it's very, very strange. So I just wanted to talk about that for just a moment. Again, this photo, AI. Go find me a photo of the actual inside of a data center. I really do. I want to see it. A photo that isn't, totally AI'd. That's what I would love. So if you don't mind. I will take your comments. I appreciate some of these comments going in. And by the way, the ticks, yes, a lot of people talking about the ticks and being released and what's going on. So I might save that for Thursday because it's kind of a bigger conversation. Let me take a caller. Go ahead, caller. You're live.
You're absolutely right about all of this. What they create, as you know, are false premises, and false premises lead to a technique that they use. And one of the names is no alternative solution. They give you two solutions, two sides, and both sides are advanced tyranny or some ungodly goal. And the side of liberty is never an option. So when you talked about, the Constitution says free exercise of religion. If there's free exercise of religion, there is no reason to establish a list. If you establish a list, you're compromising. It's going to be used for some way of compromising free exercise of religion. You are almost saying word for word what I've been saying about the data centers. They're spy centers. And what's really important is these people go to some local county commission or city meeting and protest, as you say, about electricity use and water and so forth. And the spying can occur from anywhere in the world. Operation Echelon is where, going back 50 years, 40 years, where the U.S. wasn't supposedly spying on their people, but they were. But they would justify it by having Britain spy on us, Operation Echelon, and we did the same thing on the Brits. And then they would trade the data. Oh, it's okay to trade intelligence,
right?
But so this is what's they could have these senators here in Britain and spy on us almost just as well because it's electronic spying, data spying. You don't need them in your county.
Yes,
So
I agree.
You've got to oppose them everywhere.
Yes, I agree. Thank you for the call. I love it. Yeah, we're never fighting the right fight. See, this is why they position media. It's why they position media. By the way, I wanted to kind of just reference point something that's coming out on this weekend, and that is the movie Disclosure, Steven Spielberg's new epic movie, where he talks about it being true. Okay. When I did Close Encounters, it wasn't true. And now it's true. Okay. And by the way, what do they use? A media person. They use a newscaster, a media prop, because that's what the newscasters are. They're media props for propaganda. And they're using a media person to be the person that actually does the whole dribbly, weird, accenty thing that the aliens interjected in her to give her a new language or whatever. And that's how everyone knows that the aliens are here, but they're setting us up for Project Bluebeam like you cannot believe. So I just wanted to mention that too. It's the media people. The media people are positioned to never have you have the right argument, to never question what government's really doing or whether or not they have the ability. It's none of their business what religion these military members are, by the way. It just isn't. But they made it their business, just like they make them take vaccines, just like they make them do, like they have no voice when they're in the military at all. You can't be outspoken at all. And there's all kinds of rules, same exact thing. So I just wanted to mention why Disclosure, the movie, is going to bat with a media person at the helm. And that's Emily Blunt, I think, is starring in that movie. So, It just didn't surprise me that they used a media prop to focus the whole movie around, as far as her. She's the one that lets the world know that the aliens are here. So I was like, yeah, just go figure that media props in the future will be used for that role. So it's ridiculous. I did want to mention this. Now, this is kind of funny. So I love this meme, and it's all about, adult pacifiers. Pacifiers are rising in popularity. My city, my county, this is how ignorant and horrid my county commissioners are, and the city councils in my area that is supposed to be conservative. We're supposed to be the conservative part of Utah, but we are actually not. And what they did was they paid $400,000 to have a metal in the heat. I live in the desert part of Utah. And they had metal slides coming out of the 4th story parking structure. And adults dressed in, nice clothing to go to City Hall are supposed to want to act like they're 5 and, I guess, go on the slide. And because not too many kids are visiting City Hall, but you're supposed to want to slide down the slide instead of taking the elevator and go down a metal chute in 110, 150 degree weather in your suit and tie or your dress or your pantsuit. So are we being treated like children continuously? Yes. Are we ridiculous? Yeah. And adult pacifiers rising in popularity. I watched this and I was like, yeah, this is exactly what I would expect right now. So the fact that somebody would spend $400,000 on that of your tax dollars without telling you, and this stuff's going on all around the country. It's why I'm mentioning my own county, Washington County in Utah, because they're one amongst the worst in decision making. And so they decided that we needed slides as adults. So this is apropos. I look at that and I go, yeah, that's basically where we're at right now. And they want us to think the government can do everything, and that the government shouldn't even be questioned in its role or authority while we celebrate 250 years of liberty. Just goes to show you. Also, I did want to mention this too. Google to pay SpaceX $920 million per month to rent AI. computers. So the government is going to pay the government to $920 million per month to rent government computers and government programming and government software. Let me say that again. The government, Google, to pay the government, SpaceX, because it's not these two guys, $920 million a month scam money to rent the government computers. Because whenever we talk about Google, SpaceX, and AI, it's all government. It is all owned by government. It is not separate from government. There you go. Just like PayPal, just like Venmo, just like all of them, just like YouTube, it's all government run. And at some point, we will be smart enough, at least a portion of the populace, to see what's happening and not be an adult with a pacifier in your mouth waiting for the next move the government makes. So I just had to tell you about that, because I looked at that and it was like, what a scam, what a scam, what a scam. So yeah, I guess it just doesn't cease to amaze me. So I also wanted to mention CERN, and really and truly, if we could just show this photo again, because this could actually be swapped out for CERN. Honestly, I think we were shown a picture just like this when CERN got its its reboot, because CERN actually started decades ago, which I'll get to in a moment. But I just thought it was kind of funny that that this picture is sort of kind of used for a lot of different things, but is it CERN? So there was a story, and I just wanted to, maybe I should mention this first before we get into that. Look, we were talking about Google and we were talking about SpaceX. So let me go back for just a second. Facebook is planning to flood the platform with AI powered users. Now, they already have, and that's why you have all of those pages showing up on your Facebook account, by the way, because why? It's run by government. It's government. AI, Facebook, it's all government. So Meta said that it's going to be aiming to have Facebook filled with AI generated characters to drive up engagement. What they are using is the TikTok algorithm, and there was that little battle over TikTok. So it had an algorithm that kind of showed you more. So it's kind of like preaching to the choir, showed you more of what you want to see. And this is why you have pages filling your Facebook feed instead of your friends, to get you to kind of go under the illusion that that what you're thinking is perfect. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that, because when they have a headline saying Facebook planning to, it means Facebook already has and has been doing so for a long time. And so AI powered users, I was just laughing because I was like, we're already in that thick. We're not, this is not coming. This is here now. So ridiculous. But there, there and again, it's there. Okay. So SpaceX and Google are going through 2029. So they're doing $920 million a month that they're going to launder through, because they're giving money to their own entity, government, through June 2029. Now, it was really weird because there was an article about CERN, and CERN was closing its big machine. What is it called? The Large Hadron Collider, right? So at CERN, the LHC, they're closing it for a 4-year hiatus. Yeah. And so the facility is currently offline to undergo this sort of massive transformation and won't resume operations until 2030, which would be about 6 months after Google stops paying. They're going to continue to pay. But I just thought the dates were a little funny, because I started thinking about CERN, and I started thinking about, why is CERN doing this? I mean, aren't you kind of curious as to why? I mean, they just got their new reboot like not long ago, like a decade and a half ago. So why is this the third time? They call it Long Shutdown 3, to upgrade its facility again. But I found something really interesting that I'm going to share with you about CERN. And because I had a question about CERN, but CERN itself was officially established in 1954. Okay. Now think about that date. That date is a really interesting date, 1954. And let me go back to that again as well. Okay, so I'm thinking about CERN. I'm trying to understand why they have this very famous particle accelerator, why they have to close it down for 4 years until 2030. And their first operational switch, remember the big satanic rituals that were going on to open it that were super creepy, in 2008. And then they had their first collisions and proton collisions in 2009. But I remember talking about it on the air, and it was like 2014, 2015, 2016. I had Anthony Patch on the air. We did a lot about this. But I wanted to kind of mention, now keep the date in mind, but I kind of wanted to mention something that was interesting. It was interesting because I just thought it's strange. And that is that there are 23 member states that give this entity called CERN $1.5 billion that we know of. Okay. 23 member states. Do you want to know the first thing I thought of when I was looking at that? I was like, that's so interesting. It's about the same number that control Antarctica in its treaty. And then I started doing some digging, and I was like, CERN has, or Antarctica, they share 21 of the 23 member states. That's a really high amount. That's almost 100%, 21 out of 23. CERN and Antarctica share the exact same countries, and both were both around the same time. Don't you find that weird? CERN, 1954, although no one really realized what it was or what it was doing. And Antarctica, 1959? It's just really weird, really strange to me. And I kept thinking, what is off here? Like, I don't understand what's going on here. So I was kind of looking at that, and they spend $1.5 billion a year budget. And why are they doing it? What does it have in common? And smashing protons at 99.9999% of the speed of light is what they say, is what they talk about. This long shutdown until 2030. I just thought it was strange. And they want to increase collision rates by 10 times the amount. And CERN has been blamed on having more and more and more volatile weather manipulation too. So I'll be looking more into this, but and of course I'm getting a text, Roswell, New Mexico, 1955. There's a lot that actually came in to this particular window. Let me show you this. So there's this little 10-year window where everything was basically instigated, right? World Bank, 1944, Bretton Woods, right? Controls the money. The IMF, 1944, controls the debt. United Nations, 1945. I have this graphic up if you're not watching on YouTube. United Nations, 1945, controls basic governance. The CIA, 1947, controls the information, also controls the coups of the country, also controls the war on terror. They contrived that and manufactured the war on terror. They are very busy, very busy. Also, they control the manipulation efforts to brainwash us. Okay, so that was and take over media, take over news, take over information. So all information. But NATO, 1949, controls force, right? Which countries need to be forced into doing certain things, and of course the NSA, 1952. They had it before that, but that was the official date. Controls surveillance. All of this post World War II, with the Nazis, also HARP. Thank you for the text. Also HARP. Remember to include HARP. Okay. HARP. All at the same time. With the Nazis, we were supposed to oppose, right? That we were supposed to be against in a world war that we knew was coming and manipulated. And then all of this at the same time. Do you think there's any coincidence? Or am I a coincidence theorist? Well, I'm not a coincidence theorist, so I will tell you that there is no coincidence that all of this came up at the same time. All at the same time when our country was actually doing pretty well. Our country was doing really amazing at this time. In fact, coming after the war, we had a really good income amount as opposed to debt. We were thriving in our nuclear families. We weren't shoving the LGBTQ down everyone's throats. We weren't in this trans war, which is really strange because, girls are girls and boys are boys, but we try to make something else out of that. And all the crazy that's happened. At this time, we were actually doing really well. We weren't really paying attention to what government was doing. Why? Because we'd won the war, right? We'd won the war. So why be confused? Why look at what the government's really doing? We had the Manhattan Project. We had all of those things pre this. And then we had the World Bank, the IMF, the United Nations, the CIA, NATO, NSA, HARP, and Roswell, all at the same time. Do you think there's any coincidence? And this is why I mentioned the Alien movie coming in, because all of that came about. We weren't getting alien visits throughout history. No, what they were viewing, and I looked this up, actually did the research on it, was comets in the sky. It wasn't, it wasn't anything but comets. So all of a sudden, in the 40s and 50s, we started with the little green men, the weird alien, and it was from the media props. And it came by way of movies, Hollywood, and media. Okay, government tries to deny it, and then all of a sudden, no, now it's true. Okay, by the way, yes, LB, the first three on the list were all put together by the same FDR sneaks. Yes, they were. Okay, caller, go right ahead.
Yeah, good afternoon, Kate.
Hi. Go right ahead.
Yeah, you were talking about the space alien, and there really is no such thing as the space aliens. We're dealing with the Nephilim, and those are the ones that use the spacecraft, is what you would call it, so-called space, but they're interdimensional portal devices. They're coming through different dimensions. And the problem, if you're talking about like H.L. Lovecraft and Area 51, and what happened is when there was another guy trying to think of his name, but they were doing the spiritual portal openings, and they broke a hole in the God's firmament, and that's when you had the Roswell crashes, when they were able to transfer back in through the realm. That's how the portals got open. It was through a form of witchcraft or black magic that has been known for a long time. Aleister Crowley was behind a lot of that, teaching them guys how to open the portals. Also, like when the Manhattan Project happened, and the Navy ship actually transposed into different areas, and the human people that were on the ship were melted right into the metal. That's part of the project. That's the same thing as where you're going interdimensionally, and that's what we're dealing with today. The Nephilim are back. They're still soul sucking us. They're going after our souls. They have no souls. They're after our Christian souls so they can take them. They're energy suckers.
All right. Well, thanks. Thanks for the call. And interesting. So anyway, I was kind of looking at this, and I did think it was really strange that CERN is owned by the same countries as Antarctica. And I think people should look at that. I think there's something about, there's a big correlation there that we should be looking at. And it never dawned on me to look at, I don't know why. I mean, I've done so many shows, I've got like 8,000 or 9,000 hours of shows, but I've never thought about the fact that CERN is owned by the same countries. Same countries came together. And by the way, Russia came together for the Antarctica Treaty. So your bad guy is essentially in a treaty with you, but he's the bad guy ready to nuke you, but you all have this agreement over this country that no one can visit. Does that make sense? No, it doesn't make sense. So I just wanted to let you know about that. And I will be doing a lot more homework on that, but it was very strange to me. So if you have anything to add, of course, email me, kate@katedalleyradio.com. And by the way, I still have the ebook special up. You can go get the 2 ebooks, the one on AI, the real thing that's going on with AI is more financial, and you should know about it and you should understand it, along with the cancer ebook, how to deal with it naturally and how to tackle it. I can't say any other word but tackle, because the other word rhymes with pure. So can't say that or YouTube will take me down. So if you go to get the ebooks, they're on a special still, and you could go grab those. It's kind of like a 2-for-1 at katetalks.myshopify.com. I'd go there and get those 2 books today. Because you need it kind of explained as far as that goes. There's more to it than people realize. But yeah, very, very, very weird. So Standard Oil. So I brought up World War II, and I wanted to bring this up because I was looking at kind of like the Nazi era. And of course, this is very popular with the media, right? Everyone's a Nazi if you don't like them. So I was kind of just examining that, kind of looking at that, and kind of interesting. Just interesting the way our media props lay it out. And when I talk about media props, I talk about talk show hosts, radio talk show hosts. I'm talking about all of it, okay? The right and the left. But Standard Oil, which is the Rockefellers and Bush and everybody else, supplied synthetic fuel technology to Nazi Germany, because in all of those things that I mentioned in that last slide, of all those things within 1 decade that kind of cropped up and no one really noticed, and NASA as well. Don't forget NASA was all, it was mostly done by interjecting the Nazi scientists that we never really prosecuted for war crimes. Okay. So nowadays we look back and we go, they were Nazis, right? So we actually supplied the technology to Nazi Germany during the war. IBM, the punch card technology, was used to catalog and track the populations. Chase Bank continued operating in Nazi-occupied Paris, froze certain people's accounts, and served their interests. And then IG Farben was the heavy American investment, okay, Zyklon B. So all kinds of things came out of World War II. There were so many different purposes. The creation of Israel, we need to put that into our 10-year period of time as well. There were all these things that sort of like created this tsunami of government other than just Social Security and some of the welfare programs. There were a lot more programs going on. So I thought that I just wanted to make sure people were kind of seeing it the way I think people should see it. So CERN and Antarctica, you could go there and you could say the most restricted landmass on Earth, the most expensive science experiments in human history, what gets researched, because that is really what we're doing with both of those things. And both of those things, the Nazis wanted to get them. But my question was this, and I think this is what people don't really ask, right? Is why or who created the Nazis? Why and who? Okay. So we had Bretton Woods, we had all these things come out, and then we didn't prosecute the Nazis that we so fiercely had patriotism against and fought against. And people should think that's weird. I think the Cold War was a lie. And I think that we went into a Cold War because really it was just blowing up the CIA to the level it is now. It had nothing to do with Russia being some sort of problem. By the way, remember, they had gone in with us on a treaty for the Antarctica. So give me a break. But they weren't some sort of enemy. They were just used as an enemy, okay? So the Cold War is complete BS. But Bretton Woods, we had the 1944, before the war even ended, 44 nations met in New Hampshire. The decision was made that the US dollar becomes the world's currency. Every nation on earth now needs dollars to trade oil. You have to have dollars if you want oil, and you need us. So I was thinking about that, and I was thinking about the World Bank, the IMF, the United Nations, the CIA, the NATO, the NSA, okay? The NSA 1952 control surveillance, all built basically in 7 years, but really in 10. So you could really go to the 10-year mark when you're talking about this. So what happens? They have, within all of this, what gets researched, what gets published, what gets funded, what you're allowed to know, and that you're called a conspiracy theorist for asking. And the victors of World War II didn't win freedom, and they won the franchise rights to reality itself that we're in right now. So I'm looking at all of this and I'm like, so we must have created the Nazis or the mechanisms that kind of went into World War II. Because I'm looking at this and it's like, what did the Nazis want? They wanted rocket technology, medical research, intelligent networks, mind control research, MK Ultra, Antarctica maps, claims, advanced physics research, eventually CERN, right? So I'm kind of like looking at all of this and kind of evaluating all of this. And I just thought it was kind of interesting because then I started thinking about Tesla and I started thinking about all of the stuff that he invented that they take credit for. And then it always gets really, really interesting when you're going down these paths because I'm like, there's something here. There's something that is just not getting talked about. And I did find it rather, interesting to Prescott Bush, okay, Papa Bush, had Union Banking Corp funded the Nazi war machine. This is all archived in our government, so it's not like they're hiding it. And of course, everybody remembers that he had his assets seized under the 1942 Trading with the Enemy Act, but that didn't really last. I mean, it wasn't like a big thing. It was a slap on the wrist. Henry Ford, Hitler kept Ford's portrait in his office, and there were some things there. And I was just like, interesting that that when the Nazis were named, they didn't call themselves Nazis. They were given a name. They were named by the enemy. They were defined by the enemy. Their entire historical identity was written by the people. It's kind of like how we call World War One, when it was actually just called the Great War, because they figured that at the end of that, we wouldn't have any more war. So then we renamed them in history, and we think that they actually called it that at the time, but they didn't. And so when you want to control the narrative, you sort of rebrand, rename, redirect. So the word Nazi actually came from Bavarian slang. I don't know if people realize that, but it came from slang, and it was kind of like calling somebody a hillbilly. And so it was kind of political, social, like it was really a socialist. So it was kind of slang for National Socialist, okay, which is a socialist. And it was a derogatory, kind of a form of derogatory. So it was kind of interesting. And I think people should probably question the fact that we put Werner von Braun in charge of NASA. We had Kurt DeBus in charge of the Kennedy Center. We had Hubertus Stronghold in charge of human experimentation. These are all Nazis, or that we call them Nazis. Walter Schreiber, he was USAF Air Force's medicine guy, medical atrocities. All of these people came in to be this part of this, what was going on in America, and no one even questioned it at the time. Hi, caller. Welcome to the show. Go right ahead.
Yeah, hi, Kate.
Hi.
To me, it's like so obvious because these European Jews, they're called Ashkenazi.
Mm-hmm.
And the last four letters are literally Nazi. They control the world now. They control the media. They control the banking. They control everything. And they manipulated us into that war, World War II. I mean, could it be more obvious, folks? I mean, please look into what I'm telling you. It's literally spelled Ashkenazi.
Amen. I love the insight. Thank you. I love it. It adds perfectly to today. Thank you. I think that we sometimes get so bogged down in all of the balls that they throw at us and all the disinformation and all the crap. And we don't really look and really take a big look at what went down, how it went down. I think we underestimate Satan. I think we underestimate a lot of evil. And I think that we think people make mistakes. We just made mistakes by having the so-called Nazis that we termed. I think our CIA, because before the CIA, it was the OSS. So as they were coining these terms and giving us this terminology, they make it sound as if it was USA against the Nazis. But look at what the Nazis wanted. They wanted rocket technology, space dominance, and what came after World War II. Okay. They wanted the medical research, the pharmaceutical dominance, and what came after World War II, the vaccine program and pharma. So all doctors were then trained with a script and pad. And then intelligence networks, so information dominance, which they started the NSA, mind control research, which was the MK Ultra, documented, declassified, right? Antarctica maps and claims, and advanced physics research. All of that came by way of that we said that the Nazis wanted, but we had to have. Because had we just come up with this without a bad guy, you don't have anyone to blame. There's no one to say, oh, these are the bad guys. You always have to have a bad guy so that the attention does not shift towards the actual bad guy. And the actual bad guy, or the intelligence rats and all the people in charge of these major decisions like Bretton Woods, those that run the world, it was all about them. It was all about saying these guys right here, then this picture that I'm showing are the bad guys, but they're not actually the bad guys. So I mean, what I'm saying is that we controlled the narrative on the terminology. Okay. And as we go back to the beginning of the show, and I'm going to say hi to Eric here, who's live right now with me, by the way. Just a second. Let me add you. Let's see here. Oh, where did you go? Okay, wait a minute. Hold on. Yeah, hold on. Let me put you back on. There we go. Eric Peters is with me from Eric Peters Autos, and I guess I'm just going to have to make your picture small. I don't know why that's going on, but oh, here we go. Okay, so Eric's with me, but going back to the show, and I do want to get his thoughts on this in the very beginning, because I was kind of going through a 10-year window where the government developed its IMF, United Nations, HARP, Antarctica. There were so many things that happened post World War II, and all of a sudden, where we were focused on FDR socialism by social security programs, all this other stuff was going in to control the information, the surveillance, the banking, the control, and how fascinating that is, because we didn't really notice it, just like we're not noticing today, Eric, that it's kind of like the data center. No one's fighting the data center for the right reason. We're not fighting the data center because it's a spying mechanism, or presented as one, because I think they're lying about it, like they lied about so many projects they've built in the last 70 years. I think there's going to be more to it. But what's fascinating about that is that people aren't riled up and off their couch going into the county commissioners because it's an abuse of liberty given by the feds, right? Where the county commissioners accept the feds. What they're doing is they're saying, well, it's bad for the environment, and it's bad for our parks, and it's bad for our health. And I'm like, but you're missing the whole boat. We are now going to be celebrating 250 years of government. And I'm like, and we don't have the liberty that we think we do. And I think we should be celebrating what big of wuss bags we all are in not standing up to this government, because we are never instructed by media and government to go after the right angle for a discussion. It's always kind of like celebrated as a wrong angle, and then people take the wrong angle and go with it, but it's never for liberty. And so I wanted to get your thoughts on data centers before we begin. So how are you? Eric Peters Autos, you guys need to visit this site. He does cars, and he does libertarian politics, and I just wanted to get your take.
Thanks, Kate. We go down the rabbit hole here, don't we? I think part of it is with regard to the data centers. I think the American public has been so demoralized about its loss of privacy, and about being controlled and monitored at every turn. In my own bailiwick, in the car industry, cars have literally become spyware. Yes. Consent just sort of happened by a process of osmosis over the course of roughly the last 10 years. Mm-hmm. I tell them, you realize that your car is keeping track of your location, your movements. You plug your phone, you pair your phone, and it is accessing everything that's in your phone. This stuff is being transmitted to the hive mind and then being distributed to random third parties who do whatever they're going to do with it. And it's getting progressively worse, not just incrementally, but all of a sudden kind of like a tsunami.
Yeah.
Next year, 2027, we're 6 months away. The federal government has decreed that all new vehicles have got to have these so-called drowsy driver, distracted driver intervention systems, which amounts to having eye movement monitors built into the thing. I've done a number of videos where, I take a vehicle that I'm test driving, and I discovered this randomly by accident. I do these monologues while I'm driving sometimes. I'm going to use my little camera.
Okay.
And with my own eyes, I could not see anything. But when I went back and looked at my video, I looked at the dashboard of the car and I saw these little like red flashing lights. And what the heck is that?
Yeah.
And I found out what it is. That's the eye movement monitor that is now built into the dashboard of the car that's watching you. And if you, turn to your left or turn to your right, as you ought to do to maintain situational awareness, see what's going on around you, you'll get prompted and pestered by the car. It will literally say, in some cases, Toyotas do this, sit up straight, eyes on the road. It's like,
yes, my car tells us to take a coffee break. We don't drink coffee, but it tells us to do a coffee break.
Yeah, now, at first glance, you think, okay, this is just kind of like mildly annoying and insufferable, but it gets sinister. It gets sinister. You've probably heard about the kill switch. People have been talking about the kill switch for some time. This is what that is ultimately. Now, it's part of a system that they can at any time turn on, because all cars roughly built since about 2015 are what they call connected, meaning they have the ability to send and receive telemetry, kind of like, a spacecraft. And the cars are all entirely computer controlled now. It's not just the fuel injection, it's everything, down to the little computers called body control modules that operate the windows in your car, everything.
Wow. And
everything's software driven. And so anybody who has the ability to access your car can control its functions. You have the illusion of control, sort of like when if you're playing a car driving game at home in your computer, and you're pushing down on the pedal and the engine goes boom, boom, and you go faster. When you're pushing down on the gas pedal in a modern car, it's drive-by-wire. You're not physically touching anything. You're sending data that the computer interprets, and then the computer causes the engine to increase its speed. Similarly, when you take the automatic transmission shift lever and you move it from park to drive, in the past, that actually was a cable, and you were physically engaging the transmission. What you're doing now is sending data to a computer, and the computer puts the engine into drive or park. Now think about what all that implies. Anybody who has the ability to control the computer has the ability to completely control your car, to turn it on, to turn it off. They're electronicizing everything. They now include this suite of what they call driver assistance technologies. I love the terminology, assistance, as if you're a cripple and need help.
Yes, right? Thank you, government.
Well, and this involves intervening in terms of the car automatically braking, contrary to your own input. Steering. Have you ever driven a car with what they call lane keep assist?
Yeah.
Steering wheel jerks left and right.
Yeah.
So it's electrically actuated power steering now. It's not hydraulic mechanical like it was in the past. It is an electronic system, electronically controlled, and you're not in control.
Wow.
They have done this gradually, systematically, and we're this close to them being able to exert complete, total control over your vehicle. And I think people are they kind of shrug and sigh to get back to where we started. And like, well, it's inevitable. Here we are. And the data centers, well, what are we going to do? And you're right. It's not about, they're just collecting this information for purposes of selling us ads. It's about constant micromanagement of everything. They want to know in real time everything that we do, down to the last transaction. They want to know if you bought a can of pop at a soda machine.
Yeah.
And once they have access to all that information, they can exert a degree of control that would have made Stalin giddy. And we're very close to that point.
I'm just astounded. I don't think people do realize, and I don't even think I realize, I haven't, the extent of what the cars can do, of what we're putting ourselves, because everyone has a car. We're all traveling in vehicles. And so it's very interesting, because I do think we'll get to a point, if I had to make some, I don't like predictions, but if I was forced to make a prediction about cars, I would imagine that kind of autonomy in a car going coast to coast won't happen in the future, and that going state to state is going to be something of more of a checkpoint kind of situation, where if they did want to do something, they could shut that down. You would be shut down from traveling where you wanted to. Maybe if you weren't very compliant. Maybe if you said things about the government. Maybe we could get to that point. What are your thoughts?
Oh, certainly they can do that. From a technological point of view, they can already do that. It's simply a matter of them deciding to implement it. If we had COVID too, and they decreed a lockdown, it would be much, much easier now to physically lock down people just by sending out the signal to the connected cars to not move. You might recall, the EVs are particularly bad. They're sort of the leading edge of this because they have batteries, and the range of a battery can be adjusted electronically. Elon Musk was presented as such a nice guy, such a benevolent guy a couple of years ago when there was a hurricane. It was in Texas or Florida. I can't remember exactly where.
Florida.
But he, in his great magnanimity, ordered Tesla to send an update out over the air to allow his cars to be driven farther than ordinarily they would be able to go. Now, implicit in that, if he can allow your Tesla to go farther, he can also decree that it will not go as far or at all. They can just turn it off if they want to.
Amen. Amen to that. When we started the show out, I was talking about I'm LDS, and they took LDS off the Christian list, and this was the Pentagon doing this, and all the talk show hosts. Okay, one particular, Glenn, saved the day with a phone call to the president because the president has so much power, and of course they changed their description, their classification of churches to take off the word Christian. So again, people don't say anything about the list, and that the government has no right to classify what you are and has no right to make the list, even on its servicemen. They don't have a right to get into their religion, but we think they do. And what do? We fight whether or not, or what the classification says on the list. And all the talk show hosts and everybody out there speaking, and all the senators, 2 senators from my state, blah. Anyway, the 2 senators from my state are, one's supposed to be a constitutionalist, not even bringing up the authority of the government to do that. But then again, going on concerned about how we're classified on the list. Again, going after the wrong argument.
Yeah, your point is really well said. It's utilitarian rather than principled.
Yes.
And I think that's macro, 30,000 foot view. That's the problem. We've gone away from looking at things in terms of principles and then applying that idea to these particular things so that you have a coherent view of it. It's always kind of, well, let's just look at this particular thing. And if it works, if it serves its purpose, then it's okay. All of it being subjective and arbitrary.
So in the cars, it's like, get upset that, your car can do ABC, but don't get upset. Don't even think about the fact that your car can actually be stopped, the
concept of you're nominally, legally the quote unquote owner of this thing, right? I mean, it's a fig leaf, but you're supposedly the owner. You bought it. Your name is on the title. You're paying the monthly payments, and yet it can be controlled by another party. Now, I think an operative definition of own is control. If you control something, you own it. If somebody else controls it, you don't own it. You're permitted conditional use of whatever the thing is.
Yes.
That's where we're at.
That is exactly where we're at. And with data centers, when I see all these women going to bat, and I'm like, I'm glad they're angry about the data centers, but I'm like, you're angry at it for the wrong reason. Yeah. Why don't you get off your couch just for the removal of liberty anymore? So under this cloud of celebrating 250 years and all of these counties acting like they're overnight patriots with their new patriot gear, and I'm thinking, you guys are the ones that are physically robbing people of their liberty, mentally robbing people of their liberty, and yet you're the first ones out there with your little American hat to go, aren't we a phenomenal country? And I'm like, this is ridiculous that we are. Why don't we ever bring up the fact that we're complete wuss bags, that we don't fight for anything? We just go with what we're told, just like that 10-year window of creating all of those abhorrent, just hugely authoritarian things that we did. The IMF, the World Bank, we were instrumental in doing that. And I love what our country was founded on. I love this country. I just don't like what my government's done to it,
Amen. I agree. And I think I've got a 2-word answer to your question, government schools. I think that explains a great deal of it. The whole purpose of the government school is to, in my opinion, to cripple the cognitive faculty of the child, to create essentially a machine that spits out the required rote information, but not to think. Before we had government schools, kids were first taught to think, to reason, to, that was the foundation. And once you teach a kid to reason, which can be done by the time they're 7, at that point, you give them books
Right.
And they will learn on their own. You can help them, you can guide them, but the key thing is to teach them how to think conceptually, ideas, principles. That's what government schools are designed to stunt. And so people, if how can you get upset about something if you never think about it? People go through life simply just accepting certain things without ever having given it a moment's thought. Here's a good example. We're coming up a couple of weeks from now on the 4th of July.
Yeah.
Well, what are we celebrating? People don't talk about Independence Day anymore. And I think the reason they don't use that word is because independence is just a little bit too close to secession.
Yes.
What did the 13 colonies do? They seceded from the British Empire.
Yes.
To not be part of that anymore. They weren't looking to take over Britain. They said, look, we don't like you guys. We're not happy with the situation. We think we're better off on our own. That's what they did. They seceded. And that's why we're not allowed to talk about it with regard to the events of 1861 to 1865. It's always the South and slavery. In fact, what it was an attempt by the Confederate States to secede, to leave.
Yes.
And the ironic thing is that we practice secession every day in our own lives, don't we? Yeah. If we have people we don't want to deal with, businesses we don't want to deal with, let's say you're involved with somebody in a work type situation, and it's not working out for you. You don't like it. You just separate peacefully.
Yeah.
You do your thing. I'll do my thing. That diffuses the tension and the anger. It's all of this coercion that's built into the system and the thoughtlessness that's built into the system, that everybody's got to have a bayonet shoved in their back and made to be part of this collective enterprise.
Oh, I'm so with you. What it is and what it's not. You actually wrote an article about this on Eric Peters Autos. You guys need to go there. He does some fantastic work over there and expressing some great insights as to what we're facing, because you're right. Now it's shoved down our throat that we have to, and all the churches do this too, mine included, is you have to be a good citizen of the world. What does good citizen mean? Because good citizen 250 years ago meant something completely different. It meant not being a Tory. But we're Tories through and through in this country.
Well, I think that has to do with the leadership having been bought by tax exemption to a great extent. Most churches want that tax exemption. Yes. That makes them the poodle of the government. They don't want to do anything to upset that money thing that's going on. That was probably one of the worst things to ever happen to religion in this country, was to make it a kind of adjunct of the state.
Yeah, you're right. It's the tentacles, because once we became the nonprofit status, and all the churches did, then I remember interviewing, I think it was Chuck Baldwin, and we were talking about the fact that he used to get, there used to be notices in the 70s that came, and it was like the government telling you are tax exempt, so you are going to be saying XYZ for us.
Sure.
And don't even think about not promoting XYZ. And he was shocked, and he said he should have kept some of those, because it was purely tentacles that said, you have to do what we say, because now we are financially in bed together.
Yeah. By the way, this is shifting gears just a little bit, but when you were talking earlier about the Nazis, and something popped into my mind, which I thought might be of interest, which is that at Nuremberg, none of the corporations were tried. Thyssen, Krupp, AG Farben, none of those corporations were put in the dock, and they all continued to exist and profit handsomely. And to this day, get into an elevator and you'll see Thyssen Krupp. Bayer AG is still a major pharmaceutical cartel.
Isn't that amazing? I look back on that time, because they didn't call themselves Nazis, and I think it's kind of fascinating. I think sometimes we don't think, not sometimes, all the time, we don't think as citizens, as people, and we say to ourselves, we kind of give ourselves the narrative that they present to us, and I don't know why it was that we didn't even question the fact that they were coming here and in charge of all of these different governmental departments and everything else, and in charge of science and NASA and all of these things. Because, why were we not outraged about that? Were we just so focused on life in general after a war? Did we just not notice? I don't know. It's just very strange.
I think that's probably part of it. I guess the generation of men that came home after the war just wanted to go back to a normal life.
I guess so.
It makes sense to me. And of course, back then, I can remember when there were only 3 networks.
Yes. You had to get up. I was the baby of the family. I was forced to be the channel changer and physically get up and change the channel. So
people, young people today don't recognize or have any appreciation for just how controlled the narrative was at one time. You had CBS, NBC, ABC, and that's it. Mm-hmm. And they all, played essentially the same tune. And that was your reality. You lived in that bubble. So what they chose to report, if you wanted to hear anything that was kind of off the reservation or down the rabbit hole, until the 90s, you had to go listen to George Noory, you know, on Coast to Coast or something like that.
Right. That is so true. Oh my gosh. What was the other guy's name? The guy that did the UFO?
Art Bell.
Yeah, Art Bell.
Yeah.
Yeah, you had to go listen to that. I remember listening to Dr. Demento, and that was
Me too.
everyone remembers that song. And I just remember that being sort of rebellious, you know? That you
Yeah.
listen to Dr. Demento. Oh, God.
Now it's wonderful. We have access to all this information, but everything is so fragmented and fractured. And so it's difficult to get any kind of cohesive resistance. That's the paradox. Like, we've got this great profusion of information. The stuff is out there, like Scully and Mulder would say, you know, but you find it, and then you maybe know something, but the rest of the world seems oblivious and doesn't know. So it's very frustrating sometimes.
What would you tell people to do? Because my own husband was like, you know, we need to go get a car that is exempt from all of this technology, a vehicle. I remember when we were raising the kids, it was all about, we made them drive a stick shift, a really old stick shift. Number one, they couldn't text and be on their phone because they're trying to drive. And number two, we wanted them to know how to drive and understand the mechanics of that. But and I remember talking to you about that because I think I met you way over a decade ago, and we were talking about the fact that we were doing that at the time, and so I would probably ask you, you know, what would you do about the technology in the cars? Because first and foremost, your website is amazing when it comes to vehicle knowledge, like what you need to do and what's coming and what features most overrated and everything else. EricPetersAutos.com, but please do tell me what you would do.
Well, remember Nancy Reagan and Just Say No?
Yes.
I mean, I'm trying to start a movement with regard to this drowsy driver, distracted driver eye movement thing that they're coming down the pike with. You know, and I hate to be in this position because I love cars.
Yeah.
I've been in the business all my adult life, and I hate to be the guy who says, "Don't buy one," but don't buy one. And you know, tell your dealer, tell the manufacturer why. You know, if you're somebody who's bought Toyotas for years, you can say, and it's not just Toyota, I'm just using them as an example because it's everybody. Write to them and say, you know, I've loved your vehicles. I've been a customer of yours for the past 20 or 30 years, but I will not abide this. I do not want my car watching me while I drive. I don't want my data being collected without my consent. I want to be in control of my vehicle, period, hard stop. You know, it's as simple as that. We have so much power. We have the power to say no.
Yeah.
You know, I go off on a rant about this. You know, if at the beginning of that awful fiasco called COVID and the masking and all of that stuff, if enough said, you know what, I'm not playing this stupid game. I'm not going to walk around with this stupid mask on my face, standing 6 feet. I'm not doing it. You know, if enough of us had just said, we're not doing it, it would have been over. It wouldn't have lasted 3-4 years. It would have been over in a couple of months.
You're right. But we're gullible. We're a gullible people, Eric. So
gullible to a point, but there's also fearfulness, I think, and social pressure.
Right.
You know, and I know it's difficult to be the first one to kind of come out of the trench and rush toward the other trench across no man's land.
Yeah.
But, you know, we celebrate, here's the 4th of July. We celebrate the men who did that, you know, on D-Day and everything else. Somebody's got to do it.
Right.
You know, and I'm willing to do it. I did it during COVID. You know, just join me, as Darth Vader used to say. You know, as far as the car thing goes, you don't have to buy into it. You know, you can drive an older car that doesn't have a lot of this.
What year do you have to go back to? Like what year?
You know, because there's a lot of overlap. You know, some manufacturers were a little bit more aggressive, some were less aggressive.
Right.
But roughly, if you go back to about 2015 or so, things start to get clear. If you go back to about 2010 and before, very clear. Early 2000s, you're safe. You know, anything made around that time and earlier does not have connectedness.
You had to go back to like the early 90s, though, to get a car without any of that technology.
Yeah, well, again, late 90s, early 2000s, you're largely safe. They still had largely mechanical controls, and the computer essentially controlled the fuel injection system and the emissions, and that's pretty much it.
Okay.
So, you know, it's still under your control. Now, of course, it's an older vehicle. Therein lies the rub. Right. You know, a lot of people aren't like me. They don't go out in the garage and get messy and rebuild engines and all that kind of thing. But, you know, if you really do the math, cars have gotten so obnoxiously expensive. You know, the average price paid for a new vehicle is now about $51,000. And that's not counting the insurance you're going to pay and the fact that you probably won't be able to do any service on it beyond the most basic things. So you're going to have to pay some expensive dealer to do the work. Yeah. It kind of makes sense to have your older car rehabbed.
Yeah.
You know, if you've got an older car, okay, so let's say I've got a 2002 Nissan Frontier. Let's say the engine blew up tomorrow. It's worth it to me to put, say, $5,000 into a new engine for it. You know, as opposed to buying, you know, to getting in hock for, you know, $35,000 or $40,000 for a new truck.
Mm-hmm. I'm with you on this. Now some people in the comments are saying 1970s. I mean, you could. I mean, and for the same reasons I think that you're saying right now.
In 1970s, I have an old muscle car. I have a 76 Trans Am,
Nice.
and it's a purely mechanical device. You know, it has a distributor, obviously, and an ignition system, but there is no computer. The first primitive computer controls in the mass market came online in the early mid 80s, but they were very basic, very primitive, and they ran the very basic throttle body fuel injection systems that came online. And then that throttle body went to port fuel injection, and that pretty much stayed the same all the way up through the early 2000s. It was right around that time that things just started accelerating, you know, and they started putting computers. And I think it's because, this isn't my observation, this was an observation made by one of my readers who's in the field. They started to emulate the world of the smartphone developers, you know, because they were looking, they're coming up with these new apps and all these electronic things. And, you know, what are we going to do? Cars are a mature technology. It's not like it was back when we were kids. And, you know, AC was a luxury. And, you know, so was power windows. You know, everybody had, I mean, the least Hyundai, you can go out and buy a $22,000 Hyundai now, and it has, you know, it has AC, climate control AC, and it has power windows, locks, cruise. It has everything that a Cadillac had when we were kids. So how do you justify the price? Well, oh, look, it has a huge touchscreen. Look, you know, it has voice command. It has all this, you know, electronica. That's how they try to dazzle people. You know, and you can skip it if you want to. Just you have to be willing to deal with a little inconvenience. And I think that's what's going to end up killing this country is Americans, by and large, are unwilling to deal with a little bit of inconvenience for a lot of freedom.
The one thing I remember about being in a car, especially going somewhere with my parents, was that those were all the conversations we had about family and about having things explained to us, where we actually had one-on-one time with our parents, actually talking, not because we, you know, most of the time we were out playing. And I remember that distinctly. We played games in the car, we sang in the car, we talked in the car. All of that is gone now. Everyone's on a screen. The screens, I remember in the 90s, late 90s, putting one of those little TV VCRs in the car. And that was like a big luxury because we had a long trip and we wanted to break it up a little bit. But even then, I do miss the ability to have conversations, learn from your parents in the car rather than what we have now. And
I think it's more than nostalgia. I think that what's going on right now is kind of societal cultural cancer. It's bad. You know, the fact that nobody talks anymore. You know, it's nothing sadder than seeing a group of people, friends and family, sitting around a table and they're all like in their screen. They're not looking at each other. They're not talking. You're right. I too remember being in the car, and it was an opportunity for parents and kids to talk back and forth. And you know, to get to know each other and to have, you know, banter ideas about and so on, just to talk about the world. And I don't think that it's being a Luddite or, you know, like a grumpy old man to say, you know, that's how it was back in the good old days. I think it was a valuable thing, and I think we've lost something along the way.
I think so too. Somebody brought up their son has a 1984 Dodge Ram from Florida. Dodge Ram, and of course a 79 Camaro. Again, what they would like a 79 Camaro, Swaggy says. So, yes, I had a Buick Riviera.
Boat tail, like an old one, like with the, you know, the big boat.
Yeah, that thing had an engine on it like crazy. But a front row, one seat, you know, AM, FM radio, and no bells and whistles really. I think it had windows in it. No. You had to roll them up, I'm pretty sure. Anyways,
you know what I did with my Trans Am? I've had the car forever, and back in the day, I put a then modern, you know, Kenwood tape deck in the thing. Well, I sent out my original. I still had it, the original AM FM, you know, stereo from back in the 70s. I sent it to a shop that specializes in restoring those things, and I had it restored. I put it back, so now I've got the whole 70s experience. I have an 8-track in the car, and I just the other day on eBay I picked up a Kiss Destroyer 8-track tape that I'm going to be playing in my Trans Am. Yep.
Oh my gosh, you're bringing me back. Oh, that's funny. Oh my gosh. Yeah. And now we're told to pull over by our own cars because they
not my car.
Your eye movement. I mean, there is a problem. We've got a big problem when we're not recognizing.
People don't know, you know, and when they find out about it, they're appalled.
Yes. It's so funny, you know, doing what I do for 16 years of this and getting told that I'm too mad, I'm too loud, I'm bringing up too many things that are uncomfortable. Why can't I just go into a cave and pretend I don't exist? I get told this. And also, why am I so angry about where we're at right now? Because I look outside and things are good. You know, we're good. And I'm thinking, we're not good. We're not okay. We are living in a society that has basically taken away your liberty through and through, but we just don't realize it. It's like, the cage gets a little smaller and smaller for the animal, but the animal never realizes it. They're just focused on eating, and they're focused on, in their enjoyment. And I'm not a Debbie Downer, but I am saying that we are not angry enough at what's going on for the right reasons. We're not.
People don't notice it. It's fine to look out the window. I'm doing it right now and look at the beauty of nature. But you know what? They'll take that away from us too, ultimately.
I know.
This is a war between everything that is good and everything that is bad at the end of the day. Russia's a beautiful country. Ask Alexander Solzhenitsyn what kind of nature he got to experience when he was in the Gulag. And that's where we're headed. Only it's a different kind of gulag. It's a subtler one. It's an electronic one. It's a prison, but it's one without bars, and yet it's just as effective as one with bars.
Yes, that is so funny. There was an article, I just had to laugh for a second. There was an article about birth rate, and it's blaming it on the iPhone. And it's saying that we have a low birth rate because of our cell phones. And so at first I was thinking they were going to talk about the technology of the cell phone. No, they were just saying because you're on it more and you're not with somebody. And I was laughing at that because I think it's the medical cabal that's in charge of and the toxins and everything else that's spilled onto us and our food that's supplying us with a low birth rate. But I did have to laugh at, they were basically saying, well, it's not the only thing, but it's one of the majors. And I was like, yeah. Well, yes, except that it isn't the real reason, but it was an interesting article just because it was based on the fact that you're on your phone too much and you're not getting with somebody is basically what it was saying.
Right.
I'm thinking, we do need to be reminded to actually be with each other. And I do think that come to the 250-year celebration that we should be really kind of looking at our compliance along the way and how compliant we've been and how gullible we have been to basically subject ourselves to all of the things that have been created, to all of the things that we have now that we think have to be there. Because I don't believe the government. Whenever the government says something, I go the other way because of the amount of lies that the government tells. Is there anything else? I know we have a few minutes, but is there anything else you've been working on too? Because I want to have you join me again very, very soon here.
Well, your point that you just brought up, I think, is extremely well said. You get used to it, and you don't notice it.
Yeah.
And that's why it is important to notice it and to get mad. There's nothing wrong with getting angry about injustice. It is not of the dark side to say, wait a minute, that's not cool. I'm calling that out. I want that to be different. Mm-hmm. In fact, that's what we used to respect and revere, even those old wig-wearing guys from the 18th century, who wrote the documents that were supposed to be our founding documents. Yeah. Nobody seems to want to talk about that anymore.
Yeah. And that isn't the enemy. There's a lot of leftists out there that reject the entire country and what it was founded on. And they were told a pack of lies about the founders and a pack of lies about how the country started. And it started because citizens did not, or citizens, British citizens did not, and European, I should say, citizens did not put up with the stranglehold that they had at that time. Can you even imagine? 250 years ago, they weren't happy with what was going on. And so, like you said, they seceded. And we, as people of this country, as Americans, can't utter that word because it's a bad word built by crazy conspiracists that love the Second Amendment. That's how it's framed now.
Yeah, don't be so afraid of speaking your mind.
Ridiculous.
I think one of the most awful trends of the past 50 years is this idea that you've just got to be, got to get along with everybody. You don't want to offend anybody.
Oh my gosh.
You don't want to ruffle. Now, you're not looking to be antagonistic on purpose, but speak your mind.
Yeah, speak your mind and stop with the unity crap. The founders weren't unified. They had duels,
And you know what? People will respect you, I find.
Yes.
If they know that you're a straight shooter, they may not agree with what you say, but at least they can respect you as a man or a woman who knows their own mind and is willing to be honest and forthright and just say it.
Isn't that the truth? Individual sovereignty, as one of the people texting wrote in, and we need a tyranny of sorts with the individuals that understand that they're getting fed the wrong arguments, they're getting fed the wrong outrage, we're getting fed that government should be at everything and should be in charge of everything and should be our disciplinarian and our parent, and we're not fighting for the rights of from God. We're not even recognizing they come from God. We think they come from government. And so your right to defend yourself, to the right to have free speech, to the right to all the rights. You should have the right to travel without NSA spying on you in your own vehicle, for Pete's sakes.
Yeah. And without being felt up and without being treated like a, just arrested felon being processed into the clink.
Yeah. Who doesn't enjoy a good feeling up? Not me. Not me at the airport. Thank you. Man, Eric Peters Autos, you need to go because you need to go there, visit his site on a regular basis. He's got great writing. Same with like Lou Rockwell. He's been on my show, and Lou Rockwell's site too. These are great sites to get independent thinking. When people ask me where I go for information, I never hit the media outlets. I do not visit the other talk show hosts for information because I know that there's always disinformation loaded within what they're saying. So one of the easier things to do is to go check out sites like yours that have actual thinking pieces where you go, oh my gosh, I need to really think about that. I've never thought about it in that way. Or I've never, what do we need to do about the country? What are the solutions to getting the country back? If there's a back, I don't know. I don't even know how we talk about that because for the last 100 years, we've been battling this at least 200 years. And so what do we do? But I know that you have more solutions and you're thinking all the time, Eric.
Well, thank you. That was very kind of you to say. And there's always a future. It's not like this is the end. There's always a new beginning.
Yeah.
It may take time. I sometimes make the reference to the Titanic. Well, a big ship doesn't turn very fast, but it does turn.
Right.
So it's important to make the effort to turn it. And if not for our sakes, for the sake of futurity, as Jefferson said, I feel an obligation to do that. I feel fortunate that I was lucky enough to have been born in a pretty decent country, pretty free country that let me pursue happiness, make a living doing the things that I want to do, to have a Trans Am with a manual transmission. Like for the future, somebody who's not going to be around, or will be around after I'm gone to have the same opportunities that I had. I think we have a debt there.
Yeah, I don't live under a swath of darkness. I think there's a lot of people out there maybe that do. I have a lot of hope that while we can still figure this out, maybe we can. You know what I mean? While we still have the opportunity to figure this out and actually think, maybe we can. So, and hopefully we will, because boy, do we need to. And I know we celebrate, I know your politicians are out there really gaming the whole 250-year thing, but they are one of our biggest issues and problems in America on both sides of the aisle, Republican and Democrat. And we're not addressing it. We're not talking about that. And they are the instigators of those stupid bills that they put through over.
We should look to ourselves and not look to politicians as our saviors.
Amen, brother. Thank you so much, Eric. Eric Peters Autos, you're awesome. Mm-hmm. I really appreciate Eric because he's got a great voice out there, and he's go visit his site, Eric Peters Autos, because he's definitely amazing, and I love that. I also wanted you to visit katetalks.myshopify.com. Go get the 2 ebooks I just put out, and there's more ebooks coming out. But let me just tell you, it's worth it. The AI ebook, you need to know how to position that, how to work within it, and how to position yourself for what's coming in 2029. And there's a financial angle to the AI that no one is talking about. Everyone talks about digital ID and what it's bringing us to and the removal of jobs, but they're not talking about it as a new deal that's coming. So you can get the details on that. You can actually go to katetalks.myshopify.com and get that. The one thing, the one supplement, people always ask me about supplements because they know that I try many of them. Boy, you should see my cupboards. I get sent everything, and I am going to tell you what I take because there are certain supplements I take. I do take iodine. There are certain supplements that I take from FIQ, and I love formulaiq.com, Formula IQ. They have great supplements with good ingredients. And there are like 5 or 6 different brands that you could probably take that have the good ingredients. I just like Formula IQ. And then also Cardio Miracle. That has been helping me a ton. It helps me with stress, which there is a lot of. So it helps me deal with stress because stress can bring on lots of illness, lots of disease, lots of everything. Stress is a killer. And so in what I do for a living, stress is constantly there. So I don't know what I would do without Cardio Miracle right now. So Cardio Miracle, in fact, I have the bag. Let me get it. this is it. Okay. So this is the bag right here. So Cardio Miracle. Okay. It's a dark bag with green writing on it. This is an amazing bag and it lasts a long time, and you're going to get more bang for the buck because everything is in that bag. So it's like 20 times the fruits and vegetables of any other vegetable fruit product out there that some hosts are talking about. It's better. So Cardio Miracle, take 2 doses. I swear by that one. It also reduced my husband's cholesterol. It does so naturally. So I love that product. So go to cardiomiracle.com/Kate because it's helping me. And I want to share that with you, just like I would tell you a good restaurant or a good movie, which I have. By the way, here's your reminder to go and watch The Great Awakening. The Great Awakening's on Prime, and this is a good one for your teenagers too, okay? It's a great one for your teenagers. Why? Because this is the one that is actually talking about the spiritual revolution before the actual revolution. It's actually the most important part of the revolution, because by the time we got to the revolution, it was the fighting part, but it had to be in our minds and in our hearts before that happened. So if you're wondering how that happened, and the guy that's never talked about in public school, never mentioned in public school, it's amazing. He was more popular than Ben Franklin. And in America at the time, he's the one that caused the spiritual revolution to happen. And you've got to see that show, because you're going to walk out wanting to fight more for the fantastic principles of this country, especially as all the blowhard politicians are going to act like they have brought you 250 years of liberty, which is a complete and total farce. I know these politicians. I've interviewed so many of them, so many national ones, so many local ones, you name it. I've interviewed them, and I am telling you, they're the biggest blowhard, like yes men you've ever met in your life, low character, awful swine. Can I go on? Can I tell you how I really feel? But they're terrible. And they will sit there and act like they have just brought you the liberty of your lifetime, and you should thank them. And aren't they? They're at the helm, and they're there for you, and they're there for America. And it's the biggest bunch of BS I've ever heard in my life. But listen, trying not to be mean today, but it's hard. It's hard to watch it and not understand what we're dealing with right now. But as I look at 250 years of wussbaggery by our own citizens, and our citizens that do not understand our Constitution. It's not written in Chinese, as Chris Ann Hall always says. It's very easy to understand. Its principles are easy to understand, but for some reason, people have invented that they can't understand it, so they need interpreters. But I am telling you that it's something to fight for. 250 years of the best and God-given, our ability to recognize that God gives us our rights instead of a king or a queen is a very big deal, and that we need to be fighting for that. It's that important. And I'm so appreciative of it. And I'm appreciative of this country and our Second Amendment and our God-given right to defense and free speech. And when I had free speech before I was censored. So I am telling you that we just need to look around and realize that so many people are so inept that we have to educate them. I hate to be mean, but it's the truth. It is the truth. So I appreciate you guys, and support the show right now, because it is very difficult to do this show right now. It's very difficult and hard. Ever since I was censored, it's been very difficult to stay on doing this. But these insights are so important to me. They're so important to me. And we still need people with a microphone that are willing to share what's not being shared by all the other talk show hosts. And so I do want to stay on the air. I do want to keep doing this, but it is not easy. They've made it very difficult, because when I was censored, a lot of my sponsors stopped sponsoring me. It was just crazy what happened. And so I need your help. It's got to be a people's show. And we take these deep dives. I'm going to continue the deep dive I started today. I'm going to continue on Thursday, and I will do the rest of that deep dive, because I do think it's really essential, and really kind of taking history and looking at it maybe in a more focused way. So I appreciate you guys. Thank you. Be faithful, be fearless. Go to katedalleyradio.com to contact me or have ideas to help sponsor the show or help, be a part of the show. And then also guests, if you have a guest that you'd like me to interview. I love Eric. Eric's been coming on a long time. Yes, thank you. I'm glad I'm back too. Thank you. I was on vacation last week, but I really do appreciate you guys and appreciate your help along the way. Those that have helped, thank you for that, because you've done something for liberty that is important, and that is keeping voices like mine, the very few of us left out there, so that we can still have a microphone. So I really appreciate you on that. Go get Cardio Miracle. It's a great way to support the show and a great way to support your health. You're going to love this product. I've been taking this since August and I am loving it. So I'm just telling you, it's the best. And then also go to katetalks.myshopify.com. Please get the ebooks, because they are so important. They're so important to understand and have it laid out in front of you in writing, and you can get the idea of what I'm talking about. So, all right. And again, I appreciate you. Thank you. And of course, I will see you back here tomorrow, same time, same bat channel, 2:00 Mountain, 4:00 Eastern. And I am, where did my music go? It left us. It left us. Anyway, I do really, really, really appreciate you. Thank you for supporting the Kate Daly Show. And of course, I will see you all tomorrow, same time, 4:00 Eastern, right here. Thank you.